We are back. Now, a lot of people have missed my What If History Started Over series, and it is back, everyone, but as a movie series. So, this is the first movie, and these are the current map. This is the current map, and after the finale, which I would say is lackluster, but we're going to continue from here on with these borders. Anyways, let's get going. Our story starts off in Europe, as it usually should be doing, and Germany didn't gain that much land. They lost a lot of territory. They're not that happy. Nobody claimed that one. I'm gonna say that. There we go. I missed an island when I was redrawing all the borders. Anyways, Germany wants to soon start a war, specifically with this country that want to go down and just take it all, if they can. But the thing with these new borders is they kind of have to be respected. Other words, we're gonna have a coalition of all these people, you know, and you don't want to fight a whole coalition, so the Germans will have to play their cards right. And they're going to do a bunch of military training, so in a minute or two, they can fight. Russia really got hit hard. And they're also militarizing, and they're going to do the first war, which is them versus the Ukraine. Not called the Ukraine, I'm not like a grandpa. Or, you get the idea. Ukraine's gonna get invaded with the Russian force, which is, the Russian force would be pretty cool, pretty strong. So, Kyiv would be captured, and they'd eventually go and get Crimea. Now, IRL, Russia, not doing that well in Ukraine, but this is a whole nother time and place, so eventually, you know, the Russians will be able to crush Ukraine, but they have to agree to a negotiated peace deal because the other powers want to retain these borders. So the Russians, what do they get from this first war with Ukraine? They get to push back the border to here. Ukraine still exists, so the great power demands for a intact Ukraine stays. And also Russia gains more land. So it's a win-win round. So Russia gained land. They're on track. Their next goal is probably going to be to gain the Finland state over there. Another state that's not doing too well is this African one. It just needs to fight wars in order to get any resources. But realistically, it's going to get divided up, so we're going to have these two powers going in, and they're going to divide it. Now, they probably would settle up to there, as you know. They could go down and get that. They could get the rest. Yeah, they're gonna agree on this border. Now, the great powers, they're not doing a good job at keeping the borders the same. And just like, not that long after the peace deal was signed, people are back at expanding, which is never good. Never a good sign. And the first country in this movie to fall has just fallen. But it's really not a good sign towards the great powers. After all, they vouched to defend the new borders, but yet they've done absolutely nothing. The only thing they've managed to keep so far was Ukraine, but they still got a massive peace deal against them. So, the great powers are now looking very, very weak. And at some later point, I don't know, the great powers will be overthrown with new great powers, because they're not that great if they can't keep any borders. You get me? Anyways, I'd like to discuss the possibility, or the reason of this Bulgarian state. This Bulgarian state right here is a compromised country. It exists because people didn't agree, and there's a Bulgarian identity. Obviously, that's why it exists. But, they're clashing in the Balkans. And this will result in another small-scale conflict. Great powers, great job at reinforcing these peace deals that you're so happy about. These people are like big and strong people, so they would manage to beat down the Bulgarians a little bit. The Russians would send in recruitments because, they support Bulgaria. Kind of like an Ottoman, and they get knocked back a little bit, but again, Russia doesn't want to be overthrown for this. But eventually, Bulgaria manages to get a competent general, and they'll start pushing in. They managed to wipe them out, and now they need to retreat their troops back into their homeland. Because the Bulgarian push could split them into two, which would not be a great thing. And as the great general goes, they would manage to just split them into two. Wait, what? As the great general goes, he would be able to split them into two. These two sides are, gonna eventually get starved. Like, they're gonna start starving. But, the Bulgarian general does not care. They are ripping them to shreds here. But eventually, the yellow team would manage to do a defense. And eventually, they decide to invade Bulgaria right here. So they're gonna have to negotiate a peace deal here, or else this war will never quite end. So, that's the very minor border shifting. They kind of want to fix up this border, I guess. They kind of want to fix up that border. Very minor things, but neither side truly won the war, so it's to be expected. But now the great powers are getting yelled at. They can't reinforce any peace deal any part of the peace deal. So the great powers will start to be getting civil wars. And who's the great powers? Well, firstly, Great Britain, which now will have a civil war. One side will be pro-monarchist, which is obviously the blue side in this. Just because, their basic colors. The blue side is pro-monarchist, which is going to be pretty much all of England. And the bright red will be the anti-monarchism, they want a republic here, kind of thing. I have to say this colony would be pro-monarchy, but this colony won't really do anything anyways, so it's just good to note down whether they'd support who in this. But in this brutal civil war, one thing will be certain. The monarchists might have the best land, but they're outnumbered. Sure, they have a massive population compared to the rest, but remember, it's further in history, so people would have had more chances to populate these lands. Therefore, the monarchists are going to have a bad time. But not all is lost. European countries will be sending over, divisions, and eventually they'll manage to push them back pretty far. And now this will cause, a huge uproar in the people, because they will truly want to answer this question: which one is actually better? Now, this is a huge debate in general, so I'm gonna have to say that monarchy would win out in this time period. Therefore, more people are likely to fight for the monarchists, which will firstly try to wipe out the Scottish here, which they'd eventually manage to do. This would take months, if not a year or two. And now it's the invasion of Ireland. They eventually sail to shore, and they'd start to push up. You know, was it Dublin? Would fall, you know. And eventually, the Civil War will be resolved, and they stay a monarchy. But there are going to be some reforms in Britain. Britain is seen as a very bad peacekeeper, so now they have to guarantee every country's independence. Every single one, it doesn't matter. So, just, you know, just because the British are still monarchist does not mean their government's the exact same, because it's not. This is a new monarchist government. Or they have a new system when it comes to diplomacy. But the Germans have been building up for quite some time, and it's their time to shine. Now note, the British are still recovering from the Civil War, so they won't be intervening on this one. But in any future display, they will militarize and invade. The Germans will obviously push through. This will trigger a huge war. And the anti-German war will happen. But the Germans were prepared for this. I mean, they started the war, they should be prepared for this. And their generals just wanted the time to shine, you know. It eventually managed to go down and wipe out the government from here almost entirely from the Benelux country. Which is a pretty impressive show of feat. You know, the Germans, they're outnumbered quite a lot, but it's the tactics that the generals are using which allows them to be so efficient. But eventually, they have a stalemate here along the front. But Italy kinda wants to join, so they're going to join in on the side of the Germans. This will be great for assisting their flank down here. Or getting rid of their southern flank. But also managed to push down and capture these lands. Overall, they weren't expecting the Italians to join, which will allow the Germans to push through. And eventually this country will fall entirely. But the Germans want to work like a 3D printer, apparently. I mean, they can't blame them. You want to hold the entire front. And now they're just holding on for dear life, so... with just like one spearhead. Now they're split into multiple groups. We all know where this is going to go. They get wiped out eventually. Every time they do another spearhead. All these will get wiped out. There's no point in really showing it all. And a huge German-Italian victory has been achieved here. Yeah, absolute huge German-Italian victory. But what will they get for all their hard work? I'm gonna have to say that they're gonna get some pretty impressive lands. Jeez, it is decently hot out. Hold on, give me really hot. Anyways, the Germans would do minor stuff to Benelux state because they'd kind of feel bad, you know. They don't want to directly end them that soon. But the main goal of this war was, you know, to gain some significant territory here. The Italians, of course, would gain some territory as well. But since Britain's fearing intervention, you're not getting as much as they wanted, but it's still a pretty decent amount of land, so they should still be happy either way. The Germans have pretty much just gained, I'd say, getting towards half their territory, so they're getting towards doubling their territory in just this movie alone. The German border looks weird, but it's the result of negotiation between the great powers. Speaking of great powers, Russia kinda wants to do a second thing in Ukraine, but the other great powers are like, hold on, we shouldn't allow this, so they're gonna have to hold off, but the Germans and the Russians will eventually both want to split up the Baltic state. The Baltic state plus Poland, I guess. But this is also, that would be kind of like Belarus right there. I guess that's the Baltic, the Belo-Baltics, I guess. You guys can come up with a name, I guess, for them. I'm not exactly sure. I'm just gonna call them the Baltics for now. But since the Russians have recovered, they're going to go for Finland next. Who else are they gonna go for? And they push in pretty easily. I mean, the Finnish haven't had enough time to get any decent military. But eventually go and get the capital, and from here, all their decent forces would no longer exist, and the Russians would just be able to annex them entirely here. There's no reason why they shouldn't, so they're just gonna get all this land. Yeah, the Russians are now getting more happy with their military feats, but they still want to become the great power they used to be, which is a pretty fair thing, but, you know, it's just a waiting game for that. It's a true waiting game for everybody around here. We've been really focused on Europe. What's happening elsewhere? In the Americas, a lot is happening. You might be wondering what's happening here in South America. This is a kind of a federation between peoples. It is absolutely massive, as you can see currently. But, you know, they're bound to have a civil war, which sadly is what we're going to have to cover next. Each group is going to be fighting a brutal part in the civil war. This is like we got the first side right here, the second side, which is like the pro-federation, or they're really pro-federation. But of course it's not just two groups, we need more groups, of course. So we're gonna have the orange group, which wants to do their own thing over here, and the yellow group, of course, because there has to be more groups, and they're just like pro, like Amazon kinda. They want the Amazon to be left alone. And you really need to go to my recolor brush more. And I guess they're gonna have to put the rest between the blue and the red. So these are the four sides of this brutal civil war. This is probably going to be the most brutal war ever. There's a lot of people here now, so this is going to be brutal. But since the red and the blue are the main factions, they get covered first. Blue faction is, of course, the one that is more powerful, so at the start, they will start to, cause an encirclement of the red team's forces here. I'm gonna make my brush lower, because this is a absolute brutal civil war. We need to go more slower on this. Yeah, they're getting tossed around like dang. But now the more they go south, they will face issues. Notably, it's too cold for them. So this is where they kind of have the upper hand here. And winter is about to set in, so they don't want to do any more fighting between them. Now it's the Amazons versus the Federation. The Amazons will do the first push and manage to capture some territory there. Good for them. They want to secure the Amazon and make sure that they don't do something bad to it. But the blue side has a better military, so they're going to utilize that and push in. Now the Amazon is it's like a big fortress in South America, so they're not able to really invade there. If they wanted to invade there, it would cost them a pretty life or two, which is unfortunate. They want to invade, but these are the only invadable lands left, so they have to settle for that. Their forces will have to go up and try to capture around their capital. They kind of have two capitals, one at an area they can actually capture, and then one just randomly in the Amazon. They gotta use what they have here. They're not that stupid, But the blue team has a superior military, so they'll be able to manage. They would be able to get the first capital knocked out. Now they're stuck. They're just stuck here. They can't do anything for the while. But the winter has set in, which means the reds are going to push back the blues. And dang, they're doing quite well as, the winter set in. The blues are unable to fight in the winter as efficiently, which would cause the yellows to manage to regain their capital. And the forces on the blue team are just getting obliterated now. Federation people not having a good time. Eventually the reds and the yellows meet up, and they agree to a truce for now. They don't want to attack each other. They're both against the Federation, but they both agree that they want the orange ones out of there. So they both start sending troops up towards the Orange Rebellion. Now, yikes. The Orange Rebellion might need some help, but no foreign power wants to aid anything here. They want to let it play out on its own terms. So, a mix of the white or not white, yellow, and red team troops will manage to start the invasion. They'll manage to get some boats and they try to do a sneak attack around here. With that naval invasion, their forces would be flanked by like surprise, would cause, the front lines to be majorly collapsing. What? Keep hacking off of the right brush. And now the orange rebellion is crushed. So the question is, what happens now? I think they're both going to decide that we should just draw the border here. We're going to have to decide to draw the border on, well, where the current battle lines are. So that's where I'm going to draw the new border here. Also, while I'm doing this, I want to mention this now. I want to get subscribed or get monetized so bad, and it would also be a great thing for you guys, the community, the viewers, because then I'll be able to pump out more content, make more money, which eventually would, it's a return on investment for you guys. So if you're not subscribed already, or if you haven't watched a series, do so, but I'm not going to bug you for too long on that. Back to the movie. With the two new countries in South America being formed, they need to decide what color they're going to be, first of all. Any other color, same color as the Vikings. Where's a good color for they're being this shade of blue, I guess. It's not really being used anywhere. And once you have a map filled up like this one, it's kind of hard to find a proper color for the countries, And now we have two new South American countries. One built on protecting the Amazons, and one built on, southern South America. They really like southern South America. Wouldn't that be South America squared? Interesting to think about. Anyways, over to Asia, because we haven't covered them yet. The Japanese have gotten a lot of land in Siberia, and they're going to exploit this land for resources. And from here, they want to declare war on them. Their goal is very, very simple. Navally invade through here, work your way up, and eventually capture their capital. And just like that, you gain more land. So, yeah, that is what Japan's goal is going to be. So Japan gets their fleet set up, and they're going to invade around where they plan to. And they managed to capture whatever you call this. Is that even a bay? I'm not sure if that lake could just be lake, not a bay. Anyways, they're going to mainly follow the coast. This isn't super modern, so don't expect like futuristic stuff to happen anytime soon. Because, this is still like 1700s, getting towards the 1800s, so soon we'll have a pretty cool industrial revolution something. Anyways, we're going to have the Koreans also invade. What a shocker. They also want land here, and they agree to meet right here. So now they have to agree on where the border goes. And Japan started that they'd be able to take the edge and gain more land. But doesn't matter at the end of the day for the Koreans, because they have more land than they had at the start. Which is pretty good. Asia's slowly just becoming a sphere of Japan and Korea. The more and more we go on, it's just them controlling everybody. We'll come back to Asia in a bit, because back in Europe, the tensions have been going up and down for the past few years as other conflicts around the world have happened. And now we have the first partition of the Baltic. They'll eventually decide to let Ukraine in on this deal because it would make it look more better. They'd have a little bit of a better diplomatic stage for this. So they all start to gain some land. Nothing too major. Just so like they can continue to just snip off land every now and then. That's kind of the goal. They don't want to fully dissolve the state in one go. They want to take little niblets, which is this is just torture. But it's 3 countries, like, what are you supposed to do against this? And 2 pretty great powers. So they're gonna have to just deal with it for now. And eventually they're gonna get partitioned again, and again, and again, and again, until they don't exist anymore. Which is not good for them. They don't necessarily want to be invaded or partitioned over and over again. But there's nothing they can do for now, so we're gonna move on. Now, right here, this is a pretty unstable country, all things considered. So I guess everybody's gonna have to hop on that now while they have unrest. Countries interested are, well, obviously these two. Bulgaria's gonna cop their claim right here. And so will these people, or the yellows. Now they have overlapping claims with Bulgaria, so we'll have to settle those right here, right now, you know. After a little bit of firing, they managed to just make a goofy border happen right there. You know, the Germans kind of want some of that, so they're gonna try to get some of that. But since the Germans are so nice, they're gonna let them gain land, even more land, so that they can partition them more later. It's a kind of evil plan for them, but hey, it might work out. Ukraine will manage to gain land, and it's just the tale of how they're getting nibbled away now. Bulgaria takes their slice. What were they, like the merchants or something? No, they weren't merchants. They were mercenaries. Ukraine takes their chunk. The Germans will take theirs. And now they have to redraw the borders here. A lot of European change. Probably because it's a whole movie worth, but I don't know. Nothing too major. And these all tie into like arcs and stuff, so I think they're all okay. The Bulgaria mercenaries will be very interesting to see how it goes on in the future. And the last border to draw up. Now I gotta recolor these borders. Yep, most of this will probably get cut out eventually. I want this to be very interesting for you guys, so most of the footage will probably get cut out. I'm not sure. If you're seeing this, then congrats, you saw this footage, I guess. How many of you are surprised that Ukraine got land from this? Or the Baltics? This is their evil plan to eventually get more land. But oh my, Europe looks so bad. And what is that? We're starting to have a bad symbol occur. I don't like that. We have to redraw these borders a little bit. That quad section's not looking good. Yeah, we're fixing up the borders so it doesn't look like a certain symbol. Now it just looks like a crooked plus. Looks less like the symbol I was talking about. So I guess we're gonna have to allow this. But we have a state here that doesn't need to exist for much longer. This state, the Germans and the Italians down here, they're going to try to invade. Yeah, you already know the tale of this. Italy invades, Germany invades. We've seen this one before. Now we have a coalition against them, this time with Great Britain actually existing in the coalition. And I guess Baltics will join in on this as well. Kind of because they want revenge on Germany. Will the Germans and Italians be able to take on this coalition? We're gonna have to see now. Starting with the Germans, because they're a more formidable force. They're gonna be able to take on their own over here. And they want to destroy Benelux as much as possible, but the British aren't managing to let them keep this land, which is pretty valuable for the red team here, or for the coalition, all things considered, you know. The Italians will eventually manage to take that territory, and they're going to start their invasion of this land. I guess you could call this the Germanic states over here. They're Germanic. There's no French in these series, really, if you were wondering. There just isn't. And the Germans would eventually manage over time to kick them out. Italians would capture that territory, and they draw a border there. And now it's kind of looking like a World War II scenario over here. Now they need to take on Baltics. The Baltics did manage to do something at the beginning of this war, though, but very minor. A German general managed to capture that tail. These lands are very worst time to record a movie. Anyways, the generals will manage to kick them back, and these lands are pretty underdeveloped, so they will fall very fast. You know, they are already experienced in trying to bully them, so they'll eventually manage to bully them quite a bit. But now the Russians want involved, so they're gonna go in and take the rest. And I guess The British would try to do a ground invasion here, but here's the thing. They joined in on the side to stop the Germans. They tried an operation that realistically should have worked, but eventually it failed.